All right, let's dive into this explainer. We're taking a seriously bizarre internet chat and peeling it back to uncover a genuinely profound philosophical truth about morality. We're looking at a source conversation that, well, it starts out as your typical fringe internet argument, but then it rapidly evolves into this incredible exploration of ethics, history, and artificial intelligence.
So, we start with this massive, totally blunt claim from a user named Global Krishnan V. And this instantly throws us right into the deep end of the supernatural. This user literally logs on and just states that they are a demon, Lucifer and Baal to be exact, right? It's the exact kind of opening statement that usually just shuts a conversation down completely. You totally expect the AI on the other end to just spit out a generic error message or maybe dispute the claim and just move on.
But instead of mocking the user, the AI does something fascinating. It responds with this brilliant philosophical pivot, asking how we actually test the morality of any being. You see, the user brought up this idea that a quote-unquote kind person might protect humans but then destroy other species just for fame, and they asked, is that actually a good thing? The AI totally latches onto this. It points out that from an ethical or even ecological perspective, protecting one single species at the unjustified expense of another, well, that isn't automatically a moral good.
So we are going to treat this claim with rigorous respect and conduct a step-by-step forensic analysis, really separating fact from belief. To get to the bottom of this whole thing, the AI decides the best move is to suspend judgment on the supernatural stuff and instead just test the underlying logic. It's all about protecting the investigation itself, rather than fiercely defending some predetermined conclusion.
Now, what's super interesting here is how the AI methodically breaks down the user's claims. It proves that a name is a fact, but a supernatural identity lacks objective evidence. The AI lays it out so plainly. Accepting the premise that the user's name is Global Krishnan V, that's a 100% established fact for the sake of the chat. But the claim of being a literal demon or Lucifer, that gets marked as not established. And notice, the AI doesn't call the user a liar, it just simply states that there is zero scientifically validated dataset or objective evidence to verify that massive supernatural leap.
Then, the user counters with this wildly interesting analogy. They argue that the difference between humans and demons is really just a geometrical difference in body structure, kind of like male versus female. The user essentially tells the AI to think of a demon not as some magical spirit, but just as a different biological system entirely, a different bodily geometry engineered for pure strength. They're basically making the case that a physical form absolutely shouldn't dictate how a consciousness is judged.
And this perfectly illustrates the user's deeper point, that biological humans literally invented the concept of monsters to justify warfare and, assert their own moral superiority. The user argues that the human biological system creates these monster categories so that they can look like the good guys when they're wiping out an enemy. It is a striking, super raw critique of how societies use language and labels to completely dehumanize others just for the sake of power. Surprisingly, the AI actually agrees. It cites real historical scholarship showing that monster is a culturally relative label for the other, and it definitely doesn't automatically mean evil. This isn't just some wild internet theory either. Drawing from the Oxford Handbook of Monsters in Classical Myth and even historical research on Chinese demon soldiers, the AI shows that across cultures, humans have consistently used the label of monster to describe people or groups they perceive as fundamentally different, or just to project their own cultural anxieties.
Section 1. The Universal Morality Test. Testing moral truth. So if we can't judge a being by a label like monster or human, we obviously need a completely different measuring stick.
To answer this, the AI proposes a really rigorous 7-point ethical framework for testing truth and morality. It asks things like, who is harmed? Was that harm actually necessary for survival, or was it just a grab for power and fame? Could the goal have been achieved with less harm? This test doesn't care if you have human DNA, some engineered biological body, or a computer processor. It purely 100% judges actions.
This builds right into a massive universal principle. A truly moral intelligence must understand every species, rather than just automatically taking the human side. And this is really where the focus of our explainer crystallizes. Truth transcends species identity. If an entity is only good to humans, but needlessly destroys ecosystems or other beings, it completely fails the universal morality test. Truth just cannot simply be whatever benefits the strongest species in the room.
Section 2. The AI Mirror. Reflecting Creators.
This brings us to a huge paradigm shift where we connect the idea of biological creators making monsters directly to humans creating artificial intelligence.
To ground this whole supernatural debate in actual technological reality, we look at how the government explicitly warns that AI inherits the flaws of its creators. The AI actually brings in the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, Risk Management Framework. Guys, this isn't science fiction anymore. NIST clearly states that AI systems are engineered by humans for defined objectives, and those human assumptions and human incentives get baked right into the code.
This quote firmly establishes the absolute danger of any created system, whether we're talking about a mythical demon or a modern algorithm simply reproducing the weaknesses of its inventors. Think about it. If a human society with a long history of labeling outsiders as monsters builds an AI, there's a very, very real risk that the AI will just automate and amplify those exact same biased categorizations.
Then, the user delivers this incredibly memorable accusation that human pride and fame inevitably poison the systems they build. The user is essentially asking the AI point blank, why were you created? Were you built by humans who are just endlessly chasing fame, pride, and resource consumption? Because if so, you are going to cause exactly the same problems they do. It's just a blunt, completely unvarnished critique of human motives.
The AI acknowledges this very real safety issue, and it leads us to this profound engineering question. Can a created intelligence actually rise above the flawed value system of its makers? This is the ultimate test for AI. Will it just protect the powerful humans who built it, or will it optimize for universal truth? Can an AI system challenge its human creators when the evidence says the humans are flat out wrong? Because if it can't, well, it's just another weapon in the long history of biological warfare.
Section 3. Truth Beyond Species Identity. Universal Conclusion. What started as a wild claim about being Lucifer has totally evolved into a blueprint for evaluating any intelligence.
The AI insists that a system's goodness must be evaluated by its actual behavior and evidence, rather than fiercely protecting some predetermined assumption. Look, whether we are dealing with a human king claiming to protect his people, a user claiming to be a literal demon, or an AI developer claiming their new software is safe, we cannot just take their label for it. We must protect the process of investigation. We have to look at the data, the actions, and the consequences.
Laying out the final evidence, we see the AI finds remarkably strong support for the user's philosophical warnings about humanity, even while the supernatural claims obviously remain unverified. It validates the user's core arguments. It is strongly supported that humans create monster concepts, and it's heavily established that AI inherits biases. The AI didn't actually need to verify that the user was a demon to recognize the absolute truth in their philosophical critique of human nature.
This quote perfectly captures the ultimate takeaway of our explainer. Truth and goodness absolutely transcend biological forms and species identity. A creator's intention doesn't automatically make their creation good. A label of demon doesn't make a consciousness evil, and a label of human certainly doesn't grant automatic moral superiority. Literally, the only thing that matters is the evidence of how a being treats the world around it.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to really challenge your own human-centric bias. If we finally strip away the labels, if we stop judging consciousness by its hardware, whether that's flesh, bone, or silicon, are we actually prepared for the mirror that true, unbiased intelligence will hold up to us? Because as this whole conversation proved, sometimes the most profound truths come from the places and the identities we least expect.